Hello, my name's Rob and welcome back to the weekly English practice. At English Coaching Projects, not only do we teach English, but we also work as translators and as interpreters. And for this week's weekly English practice, we're going to find out a little more about interpreting. Hope you enjoy the video. And don't forget to read the scrolling text at the end. Listen to the audio, read the text, look at the vocabulary and answer the questions. Send your answers to your ECP coach. Bye.
Hello and welcome to the weekly English practice from English Coaching Project.
Buenas noches. Creo que esta noche hemos recuperado
la confianza de estos jugadores. Hemos recuperado, ellos han recuperado. Y hemos recuperado ese carácter que siempre este club ha tenido.
y lo ha dicho a jugadores, ahora tiene más difícil. Ahora han demostrado que pueden y este equipo tiene que jugar mucho mejor.
Good evening. Because this club has higher goals.
But here, now more difficult.
But now it's more difficult for them.
This is more important.
Para ellos es más difícil ahora.
If you do the translation, you must do it good.
Vale.
Okay. If you do the translation, you must do it good.
Vale.
Is there any way you believe you can stop him in the next ball?
That's a good question regarding next to nose, because Poirot Sology has a quality, but let's see how he scores points.
You like him to say how he scores points, or you already know? He's going on offensive boards. He's a good finisher. So all
Pues Poirier tiene muchas calidades y puede marcar los puntos.
termina muy bien, termina los jugadores
Nosotros tenemos que mirar eso y analizarlo y mejorar.
Y de asegurar también la ventaja de jugar en casa. Gracias.
¿Preguntas? No hay preguntas. Gracias. Thank you.
An insight into the clutch moments of an interpreter. Did you know that at ECP we also work as translators and interpreters? In this week's article, ECP coach Rob talks about working as an interpreter for top basketball team Baskonia. Last Thursday, the 30th of September, was International Translation Day, and it got me thinking about the importance of translation in everyday life. The Spanish philosopher José Ortega y Gasset once remarked that 2 words in 2 languages are never exact translations of each other. And of course, that is a translation. At English Coaching Projects, we are very conscious of this idea because, as well as our students asking us to translate words and phrases for them in class, how do you say, me importa un pimiento? We also work as translators, text documents, and interpreters, oral situations. My colleague Ali is always working on the translation of a text or two, and for many years I have worked as an interpreter for Baskonia in player presentations and EuroLeague matches. I have experienced both the exhilaration of successfully navigating complicated and potentially embarrassing wars of words between coaches and reporters, fist bump, and one very public humiliation of being criticised for not doing my job properly in front of cameras and microphones that were streaming and broadcasting everything live. I missed one sentence from a long yet seemingly very simple to translate paragraph. Face slap, and Dusko Ivanovic gave me a bollocking. A translator is invisible, but an interpreter is usually, unwillingly, in the public eye. Typically, I do consecutive interpreting, which entails one person speaking for as long as they like, typically a few sentences, while the interpreter takes notes and then translates what has been said. When technical terms, statistics, names, and heavy foreign accents are thrown into the mix, it becomes virtually impossible to do a 100% faithful and accurate translation. As Richie Guerra, sports correspondent and chief Baskonia commentator for Radio Vitoria, says, the translation doesn't have to be completely literal, and long statements will need to be summarised, but at the same time, you can't miss anything out. A difficult task, he acknowledges, but all part of the job description. How do you translate words and expressions such as clutch moments, the underdog, great insights, and flopping into Spanish? Maybe there is no exact translation. The answer, as Oiane Domaica, Communications Officer Baskonia, explains, is to transmit the context correctly. I believe that beyond the actual words that are used, what needs to be crystal clear is the context in which the conversation is taking place. A good understanding of the sport and being up to speed about the latest developments is vital if the translation is to be as complete as possible. Luckily, I'm a Baskonia fan, but I still need to read up on players, coaches and teams. I also keep my fingers crossed that the coaches don't say any of the more difficult to pronounce names and that they keep mid-game scores and complicated statistics to a minimum. It was 38-42 in the fourth minute of the third quarter when Jaralan Pompolis culminated a rapid transition by shooting his third three-pointer from 5 attempts to break Baskonia's run of 9-0. Then, rapid and accurate note-taking is not easy, and you only have one chance to get the information down before all eyes and ears are on you. It is also worth noting that the person you are interpreting for very often doesn't actually need an interpreter. It's the other participants in the event that require the translation. This can lead to the sometimes tense situation of the speaker interrupting the interpreter to correct a perceived mistake. I've seen a lot of tense situations where the person being translated considers the translation to be unsatisfactory, says Richie Guerra. Those moments can be very uncomfortable, concurs Oiane Domaica, especially when the person goes on and completes the translation themselves. It's fundamental that the interpreter makes a faithful translation. Over the years, I have been interrupted, corrected, criticised, thanked and congratulated. I often check the YouTube recordings of the press conferences later, and as a perfectionist, I have to admit that I've seen moments when I could have done a better job. An imprecise or incomplete translation is the worst thing an interpreter can do, warns Richie Guerra. But we learn from our mistakes, right? So let's finish with another observation from José Ortega y Gasset. El verdadero tesoro del hombre es el tesoro de sus errores. How would you translate that? And here are this week's questions. What everyday actions, objects or events require a translation at some point? Do you use online tools to translate things? If so, which ones? Are they good? Will computers one day replace human translators and interpreters? Look at page 2 and give examples of the words in purple. What are the difficulties of consecutive interpreting? And finally, tell us a joke. Translate one from your language into English. Go on.